Johnny Fontana, Real World INFJ, back with another video.
Because you have that need. I mean, we were just talking a little while ago about how a lot of MGTOWs are saying that TFM's not a real MGTOW because he has a sex doll. I mean, how alone do you have to be before you start projecting and anthropomorphizing things? I mean, how long before we all have a Wilson? You know, and is that where we're headed?
No. Okay. So I call it the 3Ds. You need your dudes, your dolls, and your dogs. So if you want to talk to, if you want a friend, if you want a Wilson, someone to talk to, that's what you have your dudes for. You talk to your dudes. You want to do fun. So, hey dudes, let's go do something fun. You go out and do something fun. You have good times with your dudes. But unless you're homosexual, that's kind of where the relationship ends. You can't get that affection, that love, that sex from your dudes. Again, unless you're homosexual. No hate. You know, this is, you know, I'm very pro LGBT, but then if you want to come home to someone who's going to be happy to see you and lay with you and stuff like that, you can get a dog. And if you want affection and sex and you want to scratch that itch for female affection and sex and love, you can get a doll. Between those three things, you can basically get those itches scratched. It's not a matter of psychosis. It's really a matter of finding an alternative, because you take away the stuff that you can do with your friends and the effects you can get from a dog. You really only, the one thing a woman can provide that a dog or your friends can't provide is sex and affection. So you can get that with a doll. So it's all about, instead of trying to get everything from a woman, you compartmentalize the benefits of a woman and you try to find alternatives to those benefits. So you got your dudes, your dogs, and your dolls.
Today we're going to talk about putting into context MGTOW, incels, gender wars, and all that stuff, right?
I think that, as I said before, I think that social media is the most asocial, or even antisocial, invention ever. It atomized, pulverized, rendered the social fabric completely. Teens prefer to interact with other teens exclusively via social media. The number of face-to-face interactions among teens dropped by 70%, 70, not 7, 70, in the last 10 years. The amount of dating, teenagers, dropped by 63%. The amount of sexual encounters, blowjobs, you name it, dropped by 50%. In other words, teenagers have moved exclusively to social media. They no longer interact with each other, except via social media. There are numerous documented observations and cases of teenagers communicating via social media, sitting next to each other.
Oh yes, yes.
Sitting next to each other. Yeah. We have documented observations and studies of teenagers on, for example, trips, sitting next to each other, but communicating via social media and not talking to each other.
Right. Before we get into it, let me say that it has nothing to do with undermining. You know how I do. It's not about undermining any of these particular groups or what have you. For me, I have a problem with folks going online and saying, you know, MGTOW shouldn't do this, or MGTOW is draining folks, and have an opinion on them. I don't have an opinion on MGTOW. Now, let me be totally honest. When I first started watching MGTOW videos, because I'm always watching, always researching, my finger is always on the dial in terms of new cultures, new subject matter, new social issues, right? And a lot of folks that I presented with, you know, MGTOW, incel, all these movements, a lot of people don't hear about them. MBTI and all that stuff, Myers-Briggs, but I'm always, you know, into these kind of things. But I will say that I don't agree with people making online videos and undermining MGTOW and saying that MGTOW are this, or now you even have incels writing on MGTOW saying that MGTOW are basically incels who are beta bucks and were cheated on and all that stuff, right? So I don't believe that. But again, in all fairness, like I said, and pardon the wind, when I first started out, I was like, what the heck? What's going on? Like, these guys are crazy, whatever, boom, boom. But again, never commented, just was like, hey, you know what? I'm just internalizing this stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm starting to come to terms, starting to realize, make connections. That's what I do. And I've started to realize, see, we've been moving the mark, right, in society.
Homosexuality. Until 1973, and actually until 1980, homosexuality was defined as a mental health problem. In the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, edition 3, 1980, homosexuality was still listed as a mental health disorder. Homosexuals were considered sick people in need of treatment, in need sometimes of medication, and in many cases in need of commitment to a mental asylum where they went through conversion therapy. We are talking about the leading document of mental health, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. And until 1980, a year after the AIDS epidemic started, homosexuality was considered a mental health problem. Sadomasochism, sadomasochistic sex, until 2013, was considered a mental health problem. Yet until 2013, that's only 5 years ago, it was considered a mental illness, a mental sickness, which necessitated treatment. Today, 5 years later, society changed. Because, listen, what changed? The sadomasochistic practice did not change. The people who practice sadomasochism did not change. The knowledge of the psychiatric profession, psychological profession, did not change in 5 years. What changed was the attitude of society, the attitude of culture towards sadomasochistic sex. What I'm saying is very worrying. What I'm saying is very frightening and very problematic, because what we consider to be clinical entities, what we consider to be psychological diagnosis, maybe we are wrong. Maybe many of the things we today consider to be mentally ill or mentally sick or mentally unhealthy, maybe in 100 years will be considered totally normal, totally healthy.
So it's like one of those things where we just moving and we are coming along, right? So, and that's when I'm like, okay, so we're sort of accepting, and these things are becoming societal norms, right? So men going their own way, it's just another part of folks, you know, sort of attaching themselves to others who are like them, and they're creating their own cultures, their own norms, right? So now again, like I said in my previous videos, we have all these factions, different factions. We have the political faction. Everything is divided, right? There's no middle lane. It's left, right, you know, Republican versus Democrat, left, right, far right, right? So there's always these factions. You have full-on monk, you have red pill, you have blue pill, you have everything in between, right? But they all have their own little sectors and they all disagree with everyone.
And this is exactly what social media does. It closes you down, it fragmented society into identical groups. And I call this phenomena identicalness. We'll talk about it when we talk about malignant egalitarianism. Identicalness is the tendency to propagate, to collaborate and to interact only with people who are very, 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 very much like you. It's social media enhances like-minded, what we call bubbles, enhances like-minded people. So, for example, politics. Social media, you will gravitate in social media to people who think like you, agree with you. You will read only news stories that agree with you. You will never read anything that disagrees with you, challenges
it
you.
feeds you that. The social media feeds back that which it knows you're going to look at, right?
So this is called bubble. So there is also a gender bubble. It's much easier for you to interact with same gender. So same gender, same income, same education, same political views, same sports preferences. So if you're a fan of this club, you will gravitate towards, and so. So
people are literally fucking themselves.
So, yes,
or an archetype of reflective archetype.
So as I said in previous interviews that we homosexuality is autoerotic.
Right.
Absolutely autoerotic. It's a form of masturbation in effect. So
but let me give you some context in terms of, all right, this is not to justify. I'm not equating MGTOW, incels, feminists, any of these groups. I'm not, aligning them with each other. I'm not saying that they're all the same, but I want to give you some context, I want to give you some perspective, all right?
that there is a question of wish to belong. I did a study, I think it was 7 years ago. I did a study a few years ago of the reptilian movement. These are people, some of them doctors of medicine, some of them professors of, or at least one, professor of physics. Some of them professors of theology and philosophy, and I have names in mind, I'm just not mentioning them. And they believe, sincerely, that Earth has been invaded by reptilians and they took over. That personalities like Elizabeth II is actually a reptile. Only these reptilians have the ability to shapeshift and present as human. But they're not human. If someone cuts Elizabeth II in two, they will see a reptile.
I see.
And they have a whole list. Obama is reptile. Elizabeth II is reptile. I don't remember the others.
You said there's professors on this list.
Yes.
They
Highly
believe.
educated people, professors of theology, of philosophy, of physicists, and so on. Middle-class people, businessmen. I mean, not by any definition human trash or retards. I mean, a representative class. And this reptilian movement numbers, how many people do you think? I mean, they're talking about real reptiles. It's not a metaphor. Reptiles invaded the earth a long time ago.
Elizabeth II is a
And by the way, they have a council, committee of reptiles underground. And they manage the world.
That makes sense because it's nice and cool underground.
Nice and cool, and they manage the world and so on. How many people do you think are members of this?
200 nutters.
200 what? 200 in absolute terms or 200,000?
No, 200 total people who believe that...
Several million.
Million?
Several million.
Believe that Obama is a shape-shifting reptile.
Reptile, and Elizabeth II. I understand Obama, but Elizabeth II. So, several million. They have conferences and congresses, literature, vast literature. By the way, go online. Vast literature. They debate, they have forums. They debate the intricacies, because there are many types of reptiles. And also, is it an earthly reptile? Is it a terrestrial reptile? Or is it a reptile that we would identify as reptile, but actually is not reptile? So there's already camps arguing about the reptilianness of the reptiles. And now they're talking about exobiology. So is the reptile representative of... I'm completely serious.
Where's the evidence? I mean, they're doing this based on...
There's a fuck about it. I'm completely serious. And by the way, some of these highly educated people spend hours every day on these forums and arguing. Now, I ask myself a very interesting question. Why? There is no doubt in my mind that a combined professor of theology and philosophy, one of the brightest minds I know him personally, by the way, there was little doubt in my mind that he doesn't believe that Elizabeth II is a reptile. Although he does believe in other conspiracy theories, like 9/11. So, but I thought that was a step too far, a bridge too far. I asked why. Suddenly it occurred to me. It's not the reptiles. It's belonging. It's a group. It's a community.
Yeah.
It's sharing something. Being welcomed. Being accepted. Your eccentricity, your insanity, being accepted. It's about belonging. the need to belong overrules everything. If the condition to belong is to accept that Elizabeth II is a reptile, I mean, fuck Elizabeth II, she's a reptile.
Yeah, yeah.
It's belonging, it's crucial.
Yeah.
This is what creates cults. And this is what creates other equally insane beliefs, like that a Jew, illiterate carpenter, died and rose from the dead, which is about as insane as believing that Elizabeth II is a reptile. Yeah? So, belonging.
So you see what I'm saying to you? So again, I'm not saying that MGTOW is the same as people who believe in reptilians. I'm not saying it. But what I am saying, though, is that when you read these forums, when you read these comments, when you read about sex dolls, and everyone's like, yeah, like, I can't believe women are gonna, you know, I can't believe women are outraged by, you know, the sex dolls. It's gonna be coming. It's gonna be coming. I can't wait. Like, again, like, you have to come to terms with the fact that that's just another subgroup of folks. The same people who they said, like, scholars, physicists, scientists, historians believe, you know, millions of these people, bright people, believe in reptilians, that Obama is a reptilian, is a reptile, a shapeshifter, right? The same way how you have good-looking folks who have gone incel, have gone MGTOW, people who are bright, who are good-looking, who have everything going for them, but they just decided, hey, you know what, I can't get a date, whatever, for whatever reason, they go their own way, or they become incels. We have to come to terms with something. Like, we cannot just be like, all of these groups are forming, and now, oh well, it's just, we're just gonna not even consider the fact, or even try to entertain that reasoning of, like, man, maybe it's just a group effort. Because again, if you read some of the comments, someone sends a video, what do you read them say? Oh man, you're just like me. You think like me. We're the same person. We have the same voice. Make some more videos. I need it.
Social media, because listen, we are social animals. The most terrifying thing for us is not to have food, not to be in pain. Pain doesn't frighten us. Food doesn't frighten us. The weather doesn't frighten us. The most frightening thing for any of us is to be ostracized, to be excommunicated, not to belong. It's absolutely by far the most frightening thing. We can look at history. People prefer to die just not to leave the community. The biggest weapon of the Catholic Church for 400 years was not burning on the stake, auto da fe. It was excommunication. The worst heretics were left to live, but they were excommunicated. When Benedict Spinoza, attacked the Jewish perception of God, when he attacked the concept of God in Judaism, he was not killed. He was not stoned, as the Talmud dictates. He was simply excommunicated, that's all. He was thrown out of the community. There is no bigger punishment. None. If I was threatened with lack of food, with, I don't know, or no one will talk to me for 10 years. But I mean no one. Not even you. No one. I don't know what I would have chosen. I think I would have chosen to go hungry. It's nothing more frightening.
It's brutal. It's a brutal.
And this is what social media is threatening you with. If you don't behave in certain ways, if you are not negative, if you are not hate speecher, if you don't behave in certain ways, your likes will be nothing. Your likes will be minimal. You will not be retweeted. You will be ignored. You will be excommunicated. If you want to belong, this is what you have to do.
When you go online, MBTI, oh man, I can't believe you're an INFJ. Oh, I can't believe we have the same personality type. Oh man, do you agree with me? I've been experiencing this. Oh, I'm the same way. I totally get you. Yeah, and as soon as you say, hey, wake up, you shouldn't be doing that, whatever. Get away. We need a place to heal. Go somewhere else. I want to be able to relate.
If you want to belong, this is what you have to do. Do it. Be aggressive. be split, dumb down, don't be intellectual, dumb down, keep it simple, stupid. I mean, they don't tell, I mean, there's no manual how to be popular.
It's coercive.
Trial and error. Trial and error, and then you discover, if I am stupid, I have more likes. The stupider I am, the more likes I have. The more scarce or sparse the content, the more likes I have. If I put a banana peel, I will get more likes than if I put Aristotle's quote. If I don't use long words, I will be more popular. If I don't pretend that I know something, or if I don't tell people that I know something, I'll be... So you dumb down, and one of the things it does is it forces you to hide your true identity. Social media forces you to become not you, to deny critical aspects of you. If you're intelligent, you have to deny that. If you're empathic, you have to deny that. If you're compassionate, you have to deny that. If you are, so it forces you to conform to some kind of ideal that is essentially aggressive, regressive, infantile, and in one word, narcissist.
Narcissistic psychopath.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying to you? Now we have sex dolls. Guys, TMF, whatever his name is, he is discussing sex dolls and saying all you need is your dog, your doll, and your dudes. That's all you need. And when you read the comments, everyone is like, yeah, he makes so much sense. He's logical. He's there. He makes the most logical sense. He's so right. Blah, blah, blah. Like comment after comment. Like 77, 80 comments. Now you have to come to terms with, bro, this is a new social norm for those folks. Same way transgenders, they appealed whatever. Same way gays, you know. Same way people who are gender fluid. And now same way you have the Rachel Dolezals who say, I am white, but I identify as black.
We are transforming the concept of mental health. We understand that human sexuality, human behavior, human sexual orientation, human interpersonal relations, human thinking, human emotions, they are not isolated points or isolated events which we call normal. They are on a spectrum. And in this spectrum, there is place for everyone. We used to think that there are only two sexes, male and female. Today, we identify 7 sexes. And in census questionnaires in the United States, all 7 are going to be listed 2 years from now. What I'm saying is very worrying. What I'm saying is very frightening and very problematic, because what we consider to be clinical entities, what we consider to be psychological diagnosis, maybe we are wrong. Experience shows that many things that used to be defined as mental illnesses are no longer defined as such.
Right? Like, what is the difference? Like, stop. I'm not undermining. I'm just saying, if you want to identify, if you're white and you want to identify as black, that's okay with me. If you are a man and you identify as female one day, male, and then you don't identify with anything?
More than 1/3 of people under the age of 24 are homosexuals and so on. Nothing against homosexuals. Let it be utterly clear. It's a sexual preference that I respect and I have no problem with whatsoever. I'm not homophobic in any way, shape, or form. But homosexuality reflects a basic disconnect, because we know that the historical figures for homosexuality, we know that they were within a certain range. And it is inconceivable that a sexual orientation or a sexual preference will triple within less than 6 years. So as I said in previous interviews that we homosexuality is autoerotic.
Right.
Absolutely autoerotic. It's a form of masturbation, in effect. So, of course, it has psychosexual dimensions, it has emotional dimensions, it's as rich and as profound as any relationship between two genders, two opposite genders. No one is taking this away. But there is something in homosexuality that does not exist in heterosexuality. It's the fact that you're making love to your own gender. In other words, a pronounced autoerotic element. And of course, the epitome of this is the selfie.
Yeah.
Because in the selfie, what you're doing, you're interacting with the only person who is 100% like you. Selfies today constitute 60% of all activity on social network. Selfie became very prominent in 2015-14, and today it is 6 out of every 10 posts. In other words, 6 out of every 10 times we interact with ourselves.
Yes.
We watch ourselves, we shoot ourselves.
And then we're inviting the world, in inverted commas, to look at us too. I'm looking at me, look at me too.
Look, I'm looking at me, you look at me, me.
That's fine. Like what she says here.
Now, I'm speaking from what I regard as a transgender position. I've never, I don't think of myself as man or woman, okay? And my position sort of between the genders is the entire basis, I think, of my analysis. But
yet, we can have a conversation. Because you know why? Because this is what she says about feminists.
They have a term like rape culture, okay, being repeated over and over again, okay, a term of such utter nonsense. Anyone who believes that there is a rape culture on campus, okay, is guilty of the most hysterical kind of thinking. We're dealing with hallucinations. It's a return by secularists, okay, to a notion of hellfire. Men have absolutely been demonized in a way that makes no sense, because when you go to the elite campuses in the United States, you see boys who've been so processed, who are desperate to please women. And the more men try to please women, the more men follow the agenda that women have set for themselves, the less women want them, okay? So women everywhere are unhappy. They're so unhappy. They're unhappy. They're unhappy. Why? Okay, because there are no men anywhere near. The men have been incinerated, okay, in the area around them. Okay, all right, so.
And she's protecting men. So we can have a conversation despite of what she identifies as. But she doesn't engage in this chaos, in this encroaching upon people's space. She doesn't impose. Now, my thing as far as the MGTOW going their dolls and having a Wilson, I don't have a problem with it. Just as long as you don't start now, and this is, I'm not projecting, but I'm just saying, just as long as you do not start suing people because they haven't allowed you, because now, I'm telling you, you guys, the MGTOW, there's nothing wrong with sex dolls. I'm okay with it. Dude, listen, I'm married, I've been married for 15 years, okay? But I have my wife on check. You know how? Clip, go.
So okay, but so what is it about me that actually tames that part of you and that doesn't allow you to go there?
Let's be honest. When I have explored little openings of weakness, man, I had a cobra teeth here, putting poison in my neck and telling me, do you want me to put more poison in here? And at that point, I become that person that goes like, all right, you good to go. You got going on. You can handle me. Okay, good. Like, that's the dynamic that I am experiencing. Like, it's the same as a lot of other females, especially now when females take so many roles of some kind of established roles of leadership and things like that. To get a man that is equal to come by is getting difficult, right? Because the social dynamic of you being that nurturing person, you're not that person. You're that dynamic, that masculine person over here. So you can't have two, how can I say? I feel like always one is more submissive than the other, but it's in a way that it works in a team. It's not undermining the one is better than the other. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But at the same time, you know that there are moments when I tell you and you're like, that's cool. And at that point, I'm like, see, my female thing worked on a man, you know what I mean? And vice versa, that male energy, like, it's like a checks and balances. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So when I feel like that I am the only one doing the checks and you the balance, you are the balance. I shall find me somebody else and you can weep over there. Like, I feel that's the thing, you know. I almost feel like I found somebody who can like put me in an area where I'm just not like all over the place feasting on carcasses, you know.
All right, so let's speed up. Okay, and guess what? If anything happens, I probably will end up to a certain extent MGTOW. I'm not gonna lie to you, because again, I would move overseas. I will not stay in America, that's for sure. If I ever get divorced, I am not staying in America. That's for sure, because American woman, no way, bro. You know what I'm saying to you? Absolutely not. I'm going overseas to find me a girl. You know what I'm saying to you? But nonetheless, if now, because even for me, like, I have my sex toys or whatever like that. I'm married, I have my sex toys. My wife, she knows I have my sex toys. She knows I watch porn. She watches porn. Like, no problem. You know what I'm saying? So I'm lucky. I'm lucky. So I'm not, for me, it's one of those things where I am lucky. But let now you start bringing dolls to the movies with you, out to dinner with you, all right, onto the plane with you, and they're saying, Homeland Security, Customs and Patrol are saying, dude, you can't bring this live doll with you, with this AI stuff. And then now you start suing airports, you start suing restaurants, you start suing venues and establishments because they won't let you bring dolls, your sex doll with you. Then that's an issue. You see what I'm saying to you? Because I know that's going to become a point where you're going to start bringing out your dolls, right? And I don't have a problem with you bringing out your dolls. But if you start not bringing out your dolls and you start suing people because people won't bake a cake with your picture and a doll, a sex doll on it, you know what I'm saying to you? Like, that's going to be like, okay, now we're creating chaos now. Now we're encroaching and imposing onto other people's space the normalcies. You see what I'm saying to you? Again, I have a feeling it's going to happen. People are going to start bringing out their dolls, right? And start having dinner and going to the clubs with their dolls. And for security purposes, bro, you can't bring that doll in here. What? You know, and start like suing folks. Same way how, look at Joe Rogan with that male to female female to male transgender at Wesley College.
This article that I want to talk about when we got here, a transgender woman. She was a woman. She applied to an all female college, Wellesley College. I used to actually know a girl from Wellesley back in the day. It's an all girls campus, and so she applied for the college. She was born a female, but then decided to transition into. She had a very hilarious. This is hilarious. Listen to the description of how she introduces herself, whatever. Masculine of center, genderqueer. Exactly. So, welcome on campus until the day that he announced, okay, it's he now, whatever, that he wanted to run for the school's office of Multicultural Affairs Coordinator, whose job is to promote a culture of diversity. Now, who, you would think, would need diversity more than someone who's a transgender man? You know, I mean, that's a very small segment of the population, and they're often maligned, and, you know, this is a socially marginalized group, and it would be nice for an open-minded liberal college to accept someone like this and to recognize what a perfect person to be a part of our campaign, encouraging people to, you know, to be more open-minded and accept people.
It's so crazy.
No, they attacked her because now they felt that she is a white man. And they don't want a white man in that position, because if a white man is in that position, then they're supporting the patriarchy. So there was 3 other candidates for the gig, right? All women of color. Wonderful if one of them win. And then you got, okay, you know, your problem solved. You got a woman of color in that position. Plenty of diversity there. You're good, right? No, they all dropped out. And then they started an anonymous Facebook campaign encouraging people not to vote at all to keep a white man from winning the position. This is amazing. This is the left eating itself. That's what's happening. They're eating themselves. It is a feeding frenzy.
That's what I'm saying to you. Like, total chaos. So, again, we're coming to this point where we're accepting, but we need to just ensure that we're not imposing and we're not creating chaos, right? That's all I'm saying. But as far as that's concerned, I told you that's where it comes from. People just want to be together. People want to feel that's what we built on. You know what I'm saying to you? Like, we need, and the internet has done that, has created a space by where we can just find each other, and it is the new is. You know what I'm saying to you? Anyway, that's all I have to say. Johnny Fontana, Real World, NF Scorpio. We out.